What this person emailed us about was he'd heard us talk about our definition of love, which is the experience of unconditional acceptance of what is. And he had a lot of trouble understanding how that could mean moral behavior. That he thought that if we loved somebody we saw dying in the gutter, that if you accepted them, you could just walk on by.
I fully accept that you're dying in the gutter. Have a nice day.
That's right.
I love you because I accept that you're lying in the gutter dying.
But I don't have to do anything about it, and that's what he had.
That's a wonderful interpretation.
Well, he really.
That was actually very interesting.
Yeah, so he was, confused about how we could interpret that as a loving, as love, if it meant you didn't do anything.
Faith without works for you Christians out there.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So what I was going to write him back, but we're so busy lately. I really don't have time for kind of like intellectual exchanges and intellectual chess games. I was going to write back, you're putting the cart before the horse. Our definition, what drives you to really sincerely do loving things for people is you're in a state of love. You do good things for people because there's something in you compelling you to do that. And if it's praying loudly in the marketplace or giving ostentatious gifts at the altar, as Jesus said, those people have their reward in full. They're hypocrites. They're doing it for self-gratification publicly. But any action that, here's what I think in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I think that morality, when you're in the state of love, when you're experiencing, and here's the rub, we've said this many times, the experience of unconditional acceptance of what is. You know what is? What is what really is. What is nothing less than the absolute truth. Nobody knows that. Unconditional acceptance of that, you can't accept something that you don't know, you don't see, you don't perceive, you don't recognize. You can't accept what's behind this curtain back here because it could be your worst nightmare that you've never even faced consciously, and you're not going to be able to accept it. You have to perceive to accept. And unconditional acceptance requires unconditional perception, unconditional knowledge of absolute truth. That's why we think God is love. It's an absolute state that's beyond our even wildest imaginings at our level of consciousness. However, we're saying, and he got really confused about this too, the writer, that we were saying that he thought we were saying Hitler and Mother Teresa were basically the same in terms of morality, but I'm jumping into morality right now.
So let me just kind of maybe take what you're saying, which is, okay, I mentioned walking by the person that's lying in the gutter. So how does our definition of love in affect what my actions might be to that person lying in the gutter? Well, in my prior life, earlier years, before I really started experiencing love in any way connected with how we define love now, I was a very selfish person. I was a very judgmental person. And if I saw someone lying in the gutter, I thought maybe they deserved to lie in the gutter. Maybe they'd made some really bad choices in their life. Maybe they were just a bad and wrong and evil person that, just couldn't be bothered to hold a job. And, and they were so bad that they drank too much. And so why should I give some of my hard-earned money to them? Because they can't just be bothered to go out and get a job. I mean,
sound like a Republican.
Yeah, I mean, so I would have walked by that person, and I would have felt right for walking by that person because they didn't deserve my help.
Good for them. Kicking someone when they're down is great incentive for them to get on their feet.
Well, and we will get to that actually, because sometimes what we think is love isn't really love, as all the books on codependency have illustrated. But the point I'm making here is that how I would describe that thinking process that was very common in my mind in years past was I was not accepting that person the way they were. I had all sorts of ideas about how they should be, how they could be. how they would be if I had run their life. And so they were not okay with me the way they were, the way they are, and they didn't. So it was okay for me to walk by, and by accepting them, by having the experience of acceptance for who they are, which means their frailness as a human being. They're all of us are limited creatures who make mistakes and have trouble dealing with the complexities of life. And this is what they were capable of in life. Whatever that means, the details don't really matter. And I accept them that this is the best they can do in their life. And that, when I feel that, then all that judgment's gone, all that harsh, you should be better, there's something wrong with you, all that's gone. And then what's flowing out of me is a suffering human being, that I have plenty and this person has little, so I have some to share. And that's where my acceptance, this is the type of acceptance we're talking about, is not that it means I just don't want to do anything about it. It's that my acceptance has stilled all the judgment that blocked my doing anything about it in the past.
Yeah, the objective fact would support that anybody standing on a windy street corner or at a stoplight holding a sign saying "Please help, need food," even if they're a crumb bum, if you will, which kind of the word that comes to the phrase comes to me. Somebody that's just shiftless and avoids work like the plague. Also me, I can relate to that. There's something wrong with that person. That's no way. Fat, drunk, and stupid, and standing on a street corner with a sign begging for money is no way to go through life. And
it's at minimum a very hard life.
A very hard life, a very degrading.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have any conscience or whatever arguments. Maybe they're con artists. Maybe they drive away in a Lexus. Maybe they make big bucks. Not. How many times have you heard that? You should see the cars they drive away in.
A welfare queen from Reagan's day, yeah.
They're paying a price. And it's having compassion for them where they are. And compassion is very much an aspect of love. It's seeing the extenuating circumstances. I mean, part of me, I'm just as animalistic and conservative. That's what flight fight is. When you're afraid of something, you hate it. You see somebody like Eduardo Wong not getting the death penalty, there was a part of me that was disappointed. And I am absolutely philosophically opposed to the death penalty. I'm philosophically opposed to the way we treat prisoners in this country. It's beastly. It's akin, if we survive, to the way we treated mental patients at the turn of the 20th century, at the dawn of the 20th century. It's gross misunderstanding that of the simple fact that we argue heavily in our new book, that all crime, from littering to murder, proceeds from a state of insanity, the state of confusing mind-generated reality. The bank has the money. That's where the money is, Murph the Surf, I believe, said. So I'm going to go and take it because I can get away with it, and I'm not willing to do the stuff that other people do to get income. So I'm just going to go steal it. Mm-hmm. The mind does the darndest things. This guy had some bad, Eduardo Wong. I don't want to get into all the stuff. I mean, as I was reading about the trial, I was kind of offended at the excuses, if you will, but that they came up with. It's like make marijuana legal for medical reasons. Just baloney. Make it legal because it's none of your damn business what kind of intoxicant an American chooses to use. If you ever used anything, you can get fired, and you can be a homeless person standing out in the cold with a sign saying, "Please help." There's consequences. But you don't have any right, especially when you allow people to die by the hundreds of thousands peddling your damn tobacco products and your booze that causes slaughter on the highway and wrecked homes and wrecked lives. That's legal. Why? Because you can be an idiot. You can be an unconscious cog in their machinery and drink that stuff while it comes out your butt because you'll be hungover, but you'll be at work. You'll be back at the treadmill the next morning, and that's all that counts. Unless you really get out of hand. So there's always extenuating circumstances. And where am I going with this?
Well, you were talking about how you as opposed to the death penalty as part of you was offended at the defense attorney's presentation of extenuating circumstances to excuse Eduardo Wong's behavior. But they
I was
are
offended at him getting off with life in prison, life in a zoo, life in an animal cage. I thought part of me was rooting for the death penalty.
Mm-hmm. That's how deep it goes.
Because you're afraid. You're afraid of people like that, and what you fear is what you hate. And one thing going for everybody. Well, go ahead.
Well, but this is why we talk about free will, and we are so opposed, so want to kill the concept of free will, because that underlies.
Katie and I want to kill
it. This underlies Arthur's desire. As intellectually convinced as Arthur is, and I am, that free will doesn't exist, it's still because it was so thoroughly programmed into our minds when we were babies by our culture that it's still operating under there. And so we think that Eduardo Wong freely chose to murder that policeman, and that he freely chose all his actions, and because he freely chose to do wrong, he is wrong. Because he freely chose to do bad things, immoral things, he is a bad person and immoral to his core. And there is no redeeming features about him, no reasons, no extenuating circumstances to excuse these things, because it's just who he is. He's bad, he's wrong, he's evil. And this all comes down to free will. And that's, for me, what love is about. Love is about seeing that nobody is bad to the core. Nobody is evil. That all of us are, what's really true is that underneath all of us is this core of love.
That's right, including Hitler.
That's
Hitler
right.
expressed love the best way he could. Admittedly, kind of not exactly stellar, his ability to express. But it was there. That's the core. That's the core behind in everything. It's
and
in
that's
question of meaning, Kat. It's in the
that's right.
It's in the molecules of
that make up that camera,
that's right.
The television you're watching.
Technology. It's what underlies everything.
And that's what when
theory.
you have the experience of unconditional acceptance of something, when you love it, you are seeing through that. The illusion,
mm-hmm.
right? The act that person has built up to survive in life, and you're seeing through underneath to that core person inside. Maybe you could see it this way: you're seeing to that baby that once, that was born and had, all the just brimming over with love, and that babies are the reason we love to see babies, because they're just founts of love, but for somehow that baby was twisted and distorted in the programming process of life, to where that baby grew up thinking that to survive, it had to turn to a life of crime, or it had to turn to a life of murder, because that was the best way for it to survive. But that doesn't mean that that baby isn't still in there somewhere wanting love. And that's what being love is seeing inside is.
Sounds so bleeding heart liberal, doesn't it, folks? Because it's easier. Just if a gorilla causes a problem, you just take a stick and beat on it.
Bam.
Until you. That's what the appeal of Rush Limbaugh.